In 1962, the Philharmonia went to South America, and I had got to the stage that I was no longer feeling asthmatic, so I no longer needed to use an inhaler. But just in case, I had it in my suitcase. And when we got to Montevideo, I felt a little bit short of breath, but really didn't think I needed to use it. And when I got home, I threw it away. Anyhow, our reception by the members of the orchestra at Montevideo was tremendous. And one of the horn players handed me his horn. "What do you think of my instrument?" So I thought, well, this is my chance to do my warming up exercises, which cover the whole range of the instrument. And spent the next 5 minutes doing these exercises and handed it back, said, "A very nice instrument." And then I heard him saying something to one of the other horns. And my knowledge of French is good enough to pick up that he was saying, "And he's only the fourth horn." And we had a great reception. Went on from Montevideo to Sao Paulo. Now, I do like to look around anywhere that we go to. And at Montevideo, I came down early for breakfast the first morning. And there was nobody around but the waiters. I said to one of them, "Look, I'm just going to go round to look at the city. I'll be back in about half an hour. Could I have fruit for breakfast?" He said, "Yes, that's all right." So I went round. I saw all these wonderful multicoloured buses and multicoloured buildings and so on. A very lively city. Came back in, and by this time a lot of the orchestra were there, including the rest of the horn section, and a chair for me. And they'd been waiting a few minutes, and a waiter came straight away and put a plate of fruit in front of me. I said, "How do you do that?" So when I'd eaten that, and they still hadn't got their bacon or whatever it was, and I said, "Oh, I'll see you at the rehearsal." And so at Sao Paulo, we had a bit of time. I think we only had a very short rehearsal late in the day. So I bought a street map and went for a walk following this map. Didn't realise just how big a city Sao Paulo is, but I was able to pick up the vibes. It's anywhere in Brazil is very lively, and so we played our concert at Sao Paulo and took off for Rio. Now here we were doing a completely different regime because Stravinsky was going to come to conduct an orchestra, a concert of his music. And his American sidekick conducted rehearsals for one day. We endured it rather than anything else. He was a loud-mouthed person who obviously did not recognise orchestral musicians as people he was equal to. And we were thoroughly fed up with him by the end of the day. Next morning, Stravinsky comes, and with very few gestures, it was quite clear what he wanted. all his complicated music sorted itself out. But after we'd rehearsed the first piece, for the next one we needed an extra percussion player. And he wasn't anywhere to be seen. Well, a lot of us guessed where he was, in the nearest bar. This went on for about 5 minutes. And so this sidekick, sitting in the stalls, stood up and said, "Well, I wouldn't mind playing with the orchestra." And Alan Civil, the first horn, stood up and said, "Yes, but we might not like you playing with us." Which showed just how we felt about it. And we had the concert, a great success. The next day we went, now I think there was one more concert in South America. Then we flew back, and when we were walking out of the airport, Walter Legg was walking towards us. "Oh, I'm sure you've had a wonderful time. I really would have liked to be with you," all this sort of rubbish. And not a very welcoming welcome back. But then what we didn't know was that 2 years later we were all going to receive a letter from Walter Legg. A personal letter saying the Philharmonia is closing down. And he said, "I can't get the calibre of players that we need for the Philharmonia." A large part of the truth of it was that the EMI was not giving him as much recordings. I'd always thought he was a manager for EMI, but no, he owned the orchestra. And so he was perfectly entitled to send this letter, having previously sent us our schedule for the summer, which included 6 weeks at a festival in Italy. And after sending this letter, oh no, that festival wasn't on. And somebody said, "Well, what orchestra went?" "Oh, an American orchestra." Well, the idea that an American orchestra would have been cheaper than the Philharmonic, which is what he was saying, we were too expensive. It was just a smokescreen. He'd even given a list of Royal Festival Hall concerts in the autumn, which he'd obviously got no intention of following up. And as usual in this sort of context, the orchestra got together, elected the first clarinet as our chairman, and this is when I had to go up to him and say, "Look, I'm sorry, but I'm negotiating for work in teaching." And he said to somebody else, when he thought I was out of earshot a few days later, "Oh, he'll be back." And the Walter Legg was dead against this, of course, and put every obstacle in the way that he could. "No, you can't use the name Philharmonia. I've got that name." Eventually he said, "Righto, we'll be the new Philharmonia." "No, you can't be the new Philharmonia." But he actually didn't have the power to do that. So that was a wonderful library of music. He sold it to another orchestra. Would not let us have it. So the wonderful librarian was sort of scrabbling around trying to get music. But I felt I'd made this decision to leave London to be able to bring up our two children in the country, and I sometimes wonder whether I should have, morally I should have stayed with the orchestra. And then I think of the hundreds of pupils that Nancy and I took on, quite a few of whom went on to do great things in the orchestral world, or like Nancy's best pupil, Kira Considine, she now has about 6 choirs that she conducts. And Krish Rusman, one of my best pupils, who is now living in Berlin and going all over Europe, making television films, as far as I know, that sort of thing. Very varied and right at the top of his form. So I no longer beat myself over the head for that.